Hello everyone, Mason here. How you doing? Welcome to a new beginning. From now on, if I'm talking to you about books, TV, writing, blindness or life in general, I'm going to do so under the banner of a discussion-based podcast. This is Hello Everyone, Episode 1. Today I'm going to be covering Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson in a segment that I'm going to call Yay or Nay. I've got a little skit for you, and I'll also be answering two incredibly important questions. Do blind people get dizzy, and how do they eat? Just before I get started, I wanted to say congratulations to my mum because she worked really hard and finished her MVQ a year early. Well done, Mum. I'm proud of you. Okay, let's crack on. Yay or nay? I watched 50 First Dates for the first time as a teenager. In the immortal words of Dr. Dre, it literally feels like a lifetime ago, but I still remember that shit like it was just yesterday though. Damn, that's a profound statement. Anyway, I've never been the kind of person that's had a problem with Adam Sandler, and I do remember quite enjoying the film. Except for the ending. Oh, but Mason, the ending's lovely. Yeah, it is. On the surface. Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore are finally together. They get there happily ever after. But that starts to fall apart if you actually stop to think about it for any length of time. Maybe I'm secretly a miserable, cynical bastard that just wears the facade of a cheerful man-child so effectively that I even fool myself, but I've never understood why people think that that's a happy ending. I mean, if you think about it, Drew Barrymore's character is now trapped in this endless, horrific cycle of needing to wake up and realise that she's much older than she thinks she is before watching a tape that contains footage of a life and a family that she doesn't remember having. I can't imagine needing to be told every day that you went through something traumatic, needing to act happy and in love with a man that you don't even know, and needing to look after a child that you don't remember having. Don't even get me started on the kid. I've never been able to shake the thought that it must have been absolutely terrifying to wake up heavily pregnant and have no idea how that happened. That thought process is what drew me towards Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson, a novel that centres around 47-year-old Christine Lucas, a woman with an extreme form of amnesia. Not only can Christine not remember most of her life, but she can only retain new memories for 24 hours. So, to decide yay or nay, let's take a look at the pros and cons. The pros column. The first entry into the pros column is the concept, because I absolutely love the concept. Yeah, sorry, do you have a problem?
This is not original. Plenty of stories have played with the concept of amnesia. What about Memento? What about Jason Bourne?
Ugh, he's so argumentative. Get your own podcast. Go away. I'm recording. Yeah, that's it. Keep walking. Bastard. Alright, fine. Now that Mr. Argumentative's gone, I'll admit that the concept of a psychological thriller with an amnesiac protagonist probably isn't the most original concept ever, but there was enough potential there that I was drawn in. The story opens with Christine waking up in a stranger's house, in a bed, next to a man that she doesn't know, and he's wearing a wedding ring. She thinks, bloody hell, what have I done? I've slept with a married man. I'm the other woman. But she's not, because this is her house, and it's her husband. Throughout that morning, Christine, and the audience, learn that 20 years ago she was in an accident, and since then she's had an extreme form of amnesia that affects both her long and short-term memory. Wow, that's awful, and also dramatically convenient. Once Ben, her husband, is done dropping these massive emotional bombshells with the sensitivity of a motorised hammer, he's like, alright babe, see you later, I've got to go to work. And before Christine even has a chance to say, what the hell do I do with myself all day? He's like, alright, maybe that joke was a little bit unfair. Ben has to deliver this news every day, and he can't just lead up to it gently every single time. It's just not going to work, is it? He's got stuff to do. He's got a life to live. Really need to stop being facetious. Once Christine is alone, things start to get juicy because she receives a mysterious phone call from Dr. Nash, a therapist who says they've been working together to improve Christine's memory. but they've been doing it secretly, because for whatever reason, Ben doesn't seem to approve. Nash informs Christine that she's been keeping a journal and tells her where to find it, but when she opens it, she finds a message written in her own handwriting that says, "Don't trust Ben." And that's the hook of the story. That brings me to the second entry in the prose column, which is the intrigue. This is a psychological thriller after all, so it's obvious that at least someone can't be trusted, and it's fun trying to figure out who. The third and final entry is the theme of identity, which actually receives a decent amount of exploration. If we're shaped by our past, if we're just the culmination of our lived experiences and our memories, then who and what are we without them? Christine essentially starts every day as a blank canvas, so she spends a lot of time trying to figure out who she is as a person and what her condition means for any dreams or aspirations she might have had. She says a few times that she feels like an animal acting on instinct or a ghost just drifting through life. She feels trapped in the moment, unable to appreciate anything because she knows she'll forget it, unable to remember her past or build a future. The only way for Christine to find out what she's been up to is by reading the journal she's been keeping. But is reading about a memory the same as actually experiencing the memory itself, and does it have the same value? The cons column. Let's start with the writing, because I've got 3 major issues with it. The first is the narrative, because it's pretty much, not exclusively, but pretty much all written in first person present tense, whether it's actually happening in the present, a journal entry that Christine is reading, or a memory that she might be having. This makes it really bloody hard to keep track of where you are in the timeline. If you stop paying attention for like 0.5 seconds, it's extremely easy to get confused. Wait, so is this happening in the past or present? Is it the journal or is it actually happening? Is she remembering it or is she imagining it? I just don't know. That brings me to my second major issue, which is the journal itself. I just don't buy it as a framing device because it's all written in fully formed prose. It reads like a novel. I know that I'm reading a novel, but you don't need to make me feel like I am. I just want to get lost in your story. Is that too much to ask for? Listen, I'm sorry, I just don't believe, and you will never convince me, that a person in this situation would write down their thoughts in the form of prose. Firstly, that's just not how people work, and secondly, they wouldn't have time, but I'll get back to that point in a bit. The third issue is the structure and pacing. It's split into 3 parts. Part 1 is everything leading up to Christine finding the journal, Part 2 is the entirety of the journal, and Part 3 is everything that happens after she's done reading it. To me, it just felt clunky, slow, and repetitive. You start a story that just abruptly stops while Christine and the audience read the entirety of the journal, and then it starts again. Christine learns and reacts to pretty much the same things every single day with just a little bit more information tacked on. At first, these revelations seem emotional and Christine's reactions are fascinating, but by the 50th time that we've learnt that she doesn't like sugar in her coffee, not an actual example, we don't care anymore. Then in part 3, things go a bit crazy. The pace does increase, but the first person present tense narrative thing that I mentioned before renders all of this confusing and messy. And then it ends. As for the story itself, I've got 2 major issues with that. The first is the character development. You would think that because this is a small cast, comprised of Christine, Ben, Dr. Nash, and a secret 4th character added in later on, that S.J. Watson would have plenty of time to flesh out these characters and make them feel like real, living, breathing people. But that's not the case. In the end, they all felt a bit flat and one note. I even got fed up with Christine eventually, which I don't think was helped by Susanna Harker's narration style. To be honest with you, I just never felt like I was actually hearing Christine's voice as opposed to having someone read a book to me, which is the difference between a narrator that I will like and one that I won't. My second issue, and honestly this is my biggest problem with the entire novel, is the believability factor. When the truth is eventually revealed, in a twist that I think most people would see coming, it only takes a few seconds of analysis to realise that everything falls apart under the slightest bit of scrutiny. There are so many coincidences and breaks in logic that need to happen for this plot to make sense. I simply don't believe that the characters would act the way they do, and I don't believe that the plot would unfold the way that it does. The timeline itself just doesn't really make sense to me. The journal just keeps getting longer and longer. Christine has to read all of it every day, go out, get more information, get back in time for Ben not to notice that she's been gone, and then write more without him noticing. How does that work? In the end, Before I Go to Sleep is a book with a lot of potential that it doesn't live up to. In this vicious battle of good versus bad, the cons come out victorious with 5 points to 3. So, yay or nay? The Heartthrob. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I won't be making that mistake again. Oh, listen, I gotta go. There's somebody at the door. Right, yeah, see ya. Come in. Ah, James. Hello. Take a seat, son, how you doing? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. It was just a long flight, you know. Okay, good. I don't really care. Listen, son, let's get down to business. Jenny says you want to pitch a new album. Yeah, it's... After my parents died, I just wanted to take a different direction, you know? It's a concept album called Serious Business. It's an exploration of how fleeting our mortality is and how we should appreciate the things that we love. James! Are you serious, mate? Christ, I got ash all over myself now. Where was I? Oh yeah, no, James, that's not a good idea, mate. You're Romeo Heartthrob. You've got an image to maintain. Serious business. Nobody's gonna buy that, mate. What's this artsy-fartsy exploration of our mortality? We're trying to sell records, James. I'm just tired of pumping out the same old stuff. I just want to take a new direction. I want to be taken more seriously. I want to make something that matters. Yeah, and I want Emily Picknellerton to go on a date with me, but that's not going to happen either. Listen very closely, James. You signed a contract, which means you belong to me, and if you don't do as you're told, I'll break your goddamn legs. Breaking news. In a shocking development, CEO of Hit Factory Records, Dave Greedy, was pronounced dead today after falling from the window of his luxury office at the Hit Factory Records headquarters. A witness had this to say. I was just sitting there, right, eating my ice cream, and the next thing I know I hear this smashing noise and this man just falls out of the sky in front of me. I couldn't believe my eyes. It put me off my ice cream right away. Mr. Greedy fell 100 floors and died on impact. His death was ruled an accident. In unrelated news, pop music sensation Romeo Heartthrob announced his new album, Serious Business, in a social media post. Heartthrob stated that life is full of obstacles, but you should smash your way right through them. Hello Everyone is 100% totally sponsored by Omnivore. It's simple and you're lazy. Why splurge on a romantic night out when you could order subpar food that arrives soggy and cold? Omnivore. We're subpar, and so are you. Every now and again, I scour the internet for incredibly important questions. They do exist, but I don't like answering them, because it's no fun. The other day, I stumbled across 2 questions that I desperately needed to answer. Do blind people get dizzy, and how do they eat? Let's start with getting dizzy. Judging by the fact that I just spent 30 seconds spinning around and now I'm not sure where I am or what my name is, I would say the answer is yes. Seriously though, of course we get dizzy because it has nothing to do with vision. You really could have found that out yourself just by closing your eyes and spinning around. Or Googling it. Speaking of spinning around, I have a funny story about that, because of course I do. A year or 2 after I moved in with my partner, she went out with her dad for a meal. When he dropped her off, I was happily spinning around in my office chair in the living room, unaware that they could both see me through the blinds, because it was dark. That was his first impression of me. Oh well, at least it was accurate. Luckily, I don't really mind being dizzy. I'm actually a big fan of both roller coasters and fairground rides, although the latter do make me worry a little bit more about, dying. In fact, one of the best things about being visually impaired and now blind is that you get a free carer's ticket, which makes you very popular amongst your friends. It also entitles you to a disabled fast pass. Yes, as you can see, I can't, which renders me physically incapable of queuing. Now give me a fast pass. That's definitely how I talk to people in public. In my teenage years, me and my friends went to Alton Towers, which is a theme park you may or may not have heard of. It was once featured in hit TV show The In-Betweeners, and it's not too far from me. When we went to collect the disabled fastpass, the woman behind the counter asked me, "Do you have any proof of your disability?" By which she meant, "Do you have any documentation?" Which I didn't. What I did have was my hardshell contact lens, so I popped it out and showed it to her. As you can imagine, she was a mixture of disgusted and panic-stricken. She more or less threw the fastpass at me. Making people uncomfortable to get what you want. Works every time. A few years back, me and Lee went to this fairground that had popped up in our hometown. There was this ride there, I'm not sure what it was called, but basically, you go in, it starts spinning, the resulting G-force pins you to the wall, and the floor moves away. Towards the end, as we're slowing down, I start slipping down the wall, and this makes me panic because I can't see what's beneath me. For all I know, I'm about to slip into the machinery and die. So I scream, "Lee, I'm slipping!" And she calmly replies, "You're supposed to." I wish I could have seen the expressions the people around me were wearing. That at least would have made it worth being embarrassed. Just kidding, it was too funny to be embarrassing. Moving on to how do we eat, the answer to that is with great difficulty and lots of mess. That might just be me though. This is another one of those questions that I just don't get. Maybe the people who don't know the answer have just never met or even seen a blind person in real life, but have they never tried eating with their eyes closed? What exactly do they think the answer is going to be? Well, what I tend to do is just smash the food repeatedly into my face until I find my mouth hole. Having said that, I do hate eating in public. At home, I tend to eat out of a tub because, unlike a plate, food can't get pushed off the edges, which, believe me, is a legit problem. I just can't stand eating in public, it makes me super self-conscious. I know that people can see me randomly stabbing around my plate hoping to find food, and when I do eventually locate it and get it on my fork, half the time it falls off on the way to my face, rendering both me and the table covered in food, which I might not notice. I prefer eating at home where I can just tuck in like an animal with no judgment. Seriously though, if you're thinking, it doesn't sound that hard, go eat a meal. A messy meal, like pasta or curry with your eyes closed the entire time and get back to me later. If you don't struggle, then good for you. Question of the day. There's a madman on the loose. He has the power to erase things from existence. He gives you the choice between pizza, burgers, hot dogs, and vegetables, but you can only save one. Which one do you choose? Have you enjoyed this video? If so, the like and subscribe buttons are just sitting there waiting to be pressed. Now press them, or I'll destroy every planet in the solar system one by one in a randomised order every 10 minutes until you do. Got thoughts to share on this video? Want to say hello? Well, you know where the comment section is, and the link to my Twitter can be found in the description. Thanks ever so much for spending time with me today, guys. Until next time, take care. For now, I'm off, and you should have a good one.